Of this seminar includes the anatomy, knowing the levels of cervical lymph nodes, the drainage pattern of the cervical lymph nodes, the etiology of cervical lymphadenopathy, and finally, I'll be concluding the seminar by commenting upon the mode of presentation, how to examine, and the baseline investigation in cervical lymphadenopathy. As far as the anatomy of cervical lymphadenopathy is concerned, the levels of cervical lymph nodes is divided into 7 levels, and each level has separate sublevels which contain specific group of lymph nodes. Level 1 includes submental and submandibular lymph nodes. Level 2, level 3, level 4 includes the upper jugular, middle jugular, and lower jugular lymph nodes. Level 5 includes the posterior triangular lymph nodes. Level 6 includes the central compartment of neck. Level 7 includes the upper mediastinal lymph nodes. The level 1 cervical lymph node has further two sublevels. Sublevel 1A is submental lymph node and sublevel 1B is submandibular lymph nodes. The boundary of level 1 lymph node includes the body of mandible, the anterior belly of the digastric muscle, and the posterior belly of digastric muscle. In this image, we can see the boundary of the sublevel 1A as well as the sublevel 1B level 1 cervical lymph nodes. The sublevel 1A is bounded by the anterior belly of contralateral digastric muscle, and the base is formed by the hyoid bone, and ipsilateral anterior belly of digastric muscle. And the sublevel 1B is bounded superiorly by the body of mandible, anteriorly by the ipsilateral anterior belly of digastric muscle, and posteriorly by the posterior belly of digastric muscle. The sublevel 1A group of lymph nodes are 2 to 8 in number, and it drains most part of the chin, middle part of the lower lip, anterior gums, anterior floor of mouth, and the tip of tongue. And it drains into the submandibular and internal jugular chain of lymph nodes. As I mentioned earlier, the submandibular group of lymph nodes drains the lateral part of the lower lip, the upper lip, anterior part of the nasal cavity, soft palate, floor of the mouth, submandibular and sublingual salivary glands, and it drains into internal jugular chain of lymph nodes. Next comes the level 2 cervical lymph node. It is also called as jugulodigastric lymph node. It is further divided into sublevel 2A and 2B. It is bounded superiorly by the skull base, inferiorly by the transverse plane that is passing through the hyoid bone, and anteriorly by the posterior belly of digastric muscle, and posteriorly by the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. It is further divided into sublevel 2A and 2B basically by the spinal accessory nerve. The boundary that is situated anterior to the spinal accessory nerve is sublevel 2A, and the boundary that is constituted posterior to the spinal accessory nerve is sublevel 2B. It drains most of the oral cavity, oropharynx, nasopharynx, hypopharynx, larynx, and parotid. And it finally drains into the middle jugular lymph nodes. Next comes the level 3 cervical lymph node, which is also called as middle jugular lymph nodes. It is bounded superiorly by the plane passing through the inferior aspect of the hyoid bone, and inferiorly by the plane passing through the lower border of cricoid cartilage. Medially, it is bounded by the lateral border of omohyoid muscle, and laterally by the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. The middle jugular lymph node drains most of the oral cavity, again the hypopharynx, larynx, and mainly the thyroid, and it drains into the lower jugular lymph nodes. Next comes the level 4 cervical lymph node. It is bounded superiorly by the lower border of cricoid cartilage, inferiorly by the clavicle, and medially by the lateral border of omohyoid muscle, and laterally by the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid. Excuse me, sir, the PPT is stuck.
Madan,
Yes, sir.
try to go back, just go back one slide and then see if it may possible to run it. And now it's back. Yeah.
So next comes the level 5 group of lymph nodes, which is called as the posterior triangular lymph nodes. It is bounded superiorly by the convergence of sternocleidomastoid and trapezius muscle, and inferiorly by the clavicle. Medially, it is formed by the posterior border of sternocleidomastoid muscle, and laterally by the anterior border of trapezius muscle. The posterior triangular lymph nodes is further divided into two groups, again by the spinal accessory nerve. The part of boundary that is superior to the spinal accessory nerve is sublevel 5A, and it drains most of the posterior aspect of the scalp, the neck of the skin, occipital and posterior auricular lymph nodes. And the efferent goes into transverse cervical chain, that is a sublevel 5B lymph nodes. Sublevel 5B, it is also called as transverse cervical nodes or supraclavicular nodes. The medial node part of the sublevel 5B is called as scalene nodes, which is situated in the scalene triangle. It drains most of the spinal accessory chain, that is sublevel 5A, and the infraclavicular structures such as the breast, lung, stomach, ovary, and testis. Level 6 are the central compartment of neck. It is bounded superiorly by the hyoid bone, inferiorly by the suprasternal notch, and laterally by the medial border of common carotid artery. This level of lymph node basically constitutes pretracheal lymph node, paratracheal lymph node, precricoid lymph node, perithyroidal lymph node, and the lymph node that is along the recurrent laryngeal nerve. These are enlarged basically if there is a pathology in the thyroid gland, the glottic and subglottic laryngeal larynx, and the cervical esophagus. Next, finally comes the level 7 cervical lymph node, which is the superior mediastinal group of lymph nodes. It is bounded superiorly by the superior edge of mammibrim, inferiorly by the superior border of arch of aorta, laterally on the left side by the common carotid artery, and laterally on the right side by the innominate artery. With this, I conclude the anatomy of cervical lymph nodes. Is there any questions that I should take now?
Can I come in?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
You please tell me the triangles of the neck.
So we have a submental triangle.
Inspection itself, she said.
No, first you tell me how the neck is divided into two major triangles. What are they?
Back the slides.
Yeah.
How did you conclude that it is intra-abdominal, retroperitoneal inspection?
So, hello. So I didn't get the question properly, sir. Sorry.
Neck triangles.
Yes,
you know
sir,
neck triangles, no?
It is basically divided by the straight muscles, sternocleidomastoid.
No. It is mainly into anterior and posterior. Okay.
Yes, sir.
That is due to sternocleidomastoid divides it into anterior and posterior. You agree with me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In the anterior, you name all the triangles, and in the posterior, what are the triangles?
So anteriorly,
How many? Yeah. Tell me.
Anteriorly, we have three.
How many triangles are there? How many triangles are there?
4, sir.
Yeah, tell me. Name them.
Submental triangle.
Yeah.
Submandibular triangle.
Good.
Muscular triangle.
Yeah.
And the anterior.
No. Carotid
triangles.
Okay. Muscular, carotid, submandibular, and submental. And posterior?
Posteriorly, only one compartment, sir. I mean, it is again divided into two compartments.
Okay.
By
name them.
Sir, inferiorly supraclavicular triangle, and superiorly
it is occipital and subclavian.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Nuli.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Good evening.
This was covered in the last talks. That's why I think he didn't concentrate on that.
Okay. Sorry, sir. Sorry.
Thank you for bringing Dr. Girish, you want to say anything about the levels of lymph nodes, their importance?
Few things, sir. What you mentioned in level A, we never mention it as, we take it as a midline structure. We don't mention it as contralateral or ipsilateral. It is just level 1A. It is between two anterior belly of digastrix, hyoid bone, and the mentum. So we don't mention it as contralateral or ipsilateral. Whenever we do neck dissection, it is labeled as level 1A. It is never mentioned as right 1A or left 1A. That is one point. And since you asked number of lymph nodes on each side, it's about 100 to 150 on each side of the neck. And the
Correct.
third thing which I would want to mention is, where would you find these lymph nodes in whatever levels you described, Dr. Madan? You mentioned them as level 2, level 3, level 4,
It is
or for that matter in level 2 also. Where are they situated? In which plane are they situated?
so as far as the plane is concerned, it is located deep to deep cervical fascia of the neck, sir.
Which deep cervical fascia? Which would be the name the deep cervical fascia?
Investing layer of
Exactly.
yes, sir.
And
It is
the other three?
situated superficial to the prevertebral fascia and
No. You first name the deep cervical fascia.
so investing layer
Yes.
of the neck,
Yes.
prevertebral fascia,
Exactly. Okay.
and the
Carotid
parapet.
sheath and pretracheal.
Yes, sir.
Okay. These whatever nodes which are there, for example, level 2, 3, 4, they are there along the inner aspect of the sternocleidomastoid and outside this carotid sheath, and they are within this investing layer. Investing layer divides into many leaves to enclose all these muscular and the soft tissues of the neck. So whatever lymph nodes, these glands, they're all situated within the leaves of the investing layer of the neck, the deep cervical fascia. So whenever you are trying to dissect or do a biopsy, you will make sure that you will identify the structures based on the anatomy what you mentioned and stay within this deep cervical fascia.
Yes, sir.
Madan, what is the significance of the question of Dr. Girish? Surgically, what is the, he just answered that, but I want you to elaborate it.
Sir, from my understanding, if a plane of the swelling is asked by the examiner, I should make sure that I am not supposed to say it is superficial to sternocleidomastoid per se.
Yeah, I didn't ask you about the examination. I asked you about surgery. If you are asked to do a lymph node biopsy, what is the significance of Dr. Girish's question? You have to open the investing layer. No, you can't dissect superficial to that. The nodes are always deep to the deep fascia, and that is why it is advisable to do lymph node biopsies in theater, because there are extremely important structures. And if you do it under local and if the patient moves, there is a danger that you may damage vital structures. So always tend to do cervical lymph node biopsy under general anesthesia and in operation theater rather than doing it in your treatment room. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Right.
Shall I carry on, sir?
Yeah, carry on.
As far as the cervical lymphadenopathy is concerned, if there is an enlargement of cervical lymph node more than 1 centimeter, it is considered as cervical lymphadenopathy. And the basis of the lymph node enlargement is because of the proliferation in the number of the lymphocyte as well as the macrophage in response to the antigen, or else it can be due to the infiltration of the inflammatory cells in case of infection, or in situ proliferation of malignant lymphocytes or macrophages, or infiltration of the metastatic malignant cells itself. As far as the etiology of cervical lymphadenopathy is concerned, it can be grouped into non-malignant causes and the malignant causes. As far as the non-malignant cause is concerned, the infectious disease contributes to the major part of causing the cervical lymphadenopathy. And some of the important causes includes tuberculosis, acute suppurative infection in head and neck area, measles, mumps, and rubella. As far as the acute suppurative infection in head and neck, some of the conditions such as the scalp infection, dental abscess, tonsillitis, adenitis, and the upper respiratory tract infection also can be included. As far as the malignancy is concerned, Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, as well as the acute lymphocytic leukemia, contributes to the major part of the cervical lymphadenopathy. And the carcinoma, which occurs in the aerodigestive tract, such as the carcinoma tongue, nasopharyngeal, thyroid, and tonsillar malignancy, as well as the metastasis from head, neck, chest, and abdomen, also contributes to cervical lymphadenopathy. As far as the duration of cervical lymphadenopathy is concerned, if the lymph node enlargement occurs within the 2 weeks of the initial exposure or the beginning of the disease, it is considered as acute cervical lymphadenopathy. If it occurs more than 2 weeks after the onset of the disease, it is considered as a chronic cervical lymphadenopathy. Most of the infectious diseases that I mentioned causes acute lymphadenopathy, except tuberculosis, sarcoidosis, HIV infection, and syphilis, which causes the chronic cervical lymphadenopathy. Malignancies such as acute lymphocytic leukemia causes acute cervical lymphadenopathy, and malignancies such as chronic lymphocytic leukemia and certain other lymphomas, as well as the metastasis from the primary source, causes chronic cervical lymphadenopathy. As far as the pain is concerned, acute infections causes more pain, and as well as a malignancy. Acute lymphocytic leukemia again is a painful swelling of the neck lymph nodes. Certain infection which is chronic, such as TB, and the malignancy, granulomatous disease, autoimmune disease, and certain drug reactions to allopurinol, captopril, penicillin, phenytoin, can cause painless cervical lymphadenopathy. And most of the neck swelling is accompanied by the fever. Again, infection causes fever, but in certain infection, the pattern of fever changes. For example, in tuberculosis, there is an evening rise of temperature. In Hodgkin's disease, we see Pearl-Epstein's fever, which is the intermittent bouts of fever. So far as the etiology is concerned, I have done my talk, sir. Any questions to be asked, sir?
Dr. Shivram has mentioned about Kikuchi's disease. Any idea about that, Madan?
No, sir. I don't know, sir.
In your etiology, few rarer causes such as this Kikuchi's disease, which causes necrotizing lymphadenopathy. They have necrosis within that, and there is significant histiocytosis. Specific cause is not known. Viral, autoimmune, chronic inflammation are all supposed to be the causes known to cause this Kikuchi's disease. Quite a recent one to be diagnosed in the early 70s or somewhere. Since inflammatory mechanism is known to cause this, anti-inflammatories including both steroidal and non-steroidal are used for the treatment. Many other inflammatory diseases like Castleman's also can cause significant cervical lymphadenopathy. The other thing which I would want you to talk about is this scalene lymph node, and repeatedly you mentioned about involvement of infraclavicular structures presenting themselves as nodal metastasis in level 4 or level 5, whatever. Can you just talk about that? Why do you see those lymph nodes presenting from primaries below the clavicle there, and what is the node called? Where do you significantly, or where do you examine for that?
Sir, most of the infraclavicular structures, which drains most part of the breast, the lungs, the abdomen, usually drains into the level 5 group of cervical lymph nodes. Sir. If it is enlarged, it is called as Virchow node, sir. And there is a specific sign called as a Troisius sign, which is the enlargement of left-sided level 5 supraclavicular or else supraclavicular lymph nodes. Sir.
Virchow node is scalene lymph node. Scalene, okay. Medius, scalenus, anticus. In between these two would be level 4 node. Okay, so Virchow node specifically is for this scalene lymph node only. Any other supraclavicular node is also considered or whatever as just your supraclavicular node only. Why do you think these nodes are enlarged in those infraclavicular malignancies, if at all you have to think of? And which side would you think of whenever they are enlarged as a reason to be malignancy arising from any structure in the thorax or abdomen?
Don't know, sir.
Where does the lymph from the body below the neck drain from? Where is it draining to? How is it drained?
Most of the abdomen, it's drained through cisterna chyli, sir. From there,
Okay. Cisterna chyli forms somewhere around the just superior to the celiac axis. It goes around the aorta. It travels in between the aorta and the esophagus. At the level of fourth thoracic vertebra, it turns towards the left of the vertebra and then travels along the esophagus and the trachea. It comes to the neck. Behind the carotid sheath, it curves around and it enters the junction of internal jugular vein and the subclavian vein.
okay,
So there are multiple other neck node lymphatics also, neck trunks also entering at the same area. So there is a proposition, it is not a fixed known thing to cause, but there is a proposition that there are backlogs over here. The whatever the metastatic cells arise from the structures below, they have easy access to the neck trunks or the neck lymphatics over there, and the immediate next node adjacent to them would be harboring these metastatic cells, hence they get enlarged. This is usual proposition which is proposed, though not confirmatory or elaborate one. Hence you find left-sided lymph nodes usually commonly in carcinoma stomach, testis, all those things. Breast actually is a different thing. Breast actually, it has a continuous chain from axillary level 1, 2, 3. It crosses onto the supraclavicular area, which would be N3 disease, and then it comes onto the level 5, as you mentioned over there. So breast would be a different thing. Though hematogenous metastasis finally reaching the lymphatics can come here, but usually it is along the axillary vein to come onto the supraclavicular area. Other malignancies, as you mentioned, stomach, testis, all those things follow this thoracic duct and show themselves in the level 5. Okay, so carry on. I think if anyone else wants to tell something.
Hello.
Yeah.
Most commonly, what do you think now? Cervical lymph nodes causes in Indian scenario.
yes, sir.
What are the causes you are left with? Yeah, you have mentioned here, but you tell
Yes,
me
sir.
what you feel if a patient comes with like neck lymph nodes, either it will be tuberculosis or
Hodgkin's
lymphoma.
lymphoma, sir.
Don't say Hodgkin's. That's what was my question.
Okay, sir.
Hodgkin's is no. You just say lymphoma. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's is different. Now, non-Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's, where you will search which are the common lymph node groups enlarged in non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, clinically, where you will search.
So, sir, I don't know the exact answer, but the relevant answer to your question, I will try, sir. Sir, the group
Yeah,
of
please.
lymph node which is not included in Hodgkin's lymphoma or the axillary lymph nodes as well as the epitrochlear lymph nodes, sir.
Epitrochlear, you should tell. Okay.
Yes, yes, sir.
Epitrochlear, suboccipital, like that. Okay. Now you told about Pell-Epstein fever. What is this Pell-Epstein fever?
Sir, these are
Who is this Pell and anything you know about this Pell and Epstein?
sir, I know both are scientists, sir, but I don't know.
No, that everyone knows. Anyway, you study on those people. Both of one is from Germany, one is from Denmark. Anyway, that is different. You tell, describe this fever, how it is.
Sir, intermittent. Sir, this fever follows the intermittent pattern, sir. It doesn't have a continuous fever, sir. Once in every so and so days, it has the fever, sir. Intermittent bouts of remittent fever.
Okay, okay. So lymphoma, when you say, just say lymphoma. Don't never say Hodgkin's lymphoma. Don't jump. It is a, afterwards, after the biopsy, they will tell us whether it is Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Fine, sir.
Good
Okay.
point, sir. Dr. Noli.
Madan,
Yes, sir.
one more thing which you missed is infectious mononucleosis does cause significant lymphadenopathy, and that sometimes the significance of it is even after the acute phase illness is over, the lymph nodes, sometimes painful lymph nodes, persist for a significant period of time.
Okay,
So
sir.
it can last even up to 6 months and a year. One of the very famous, I think, tennis players or somebody had this for up to a year. Lymph nodes were enlarged. So I think that is also, it's because it can be a confounding thing. That is why it's not important because patients will get better. But it can confuse you thinking that something has persisted for this long, so it must be malignant or whatever.
Okay, sir. So can I carry on further, sir?
Yeah,
Why there is evening rise of temperature in tuberculosis? You have mentioned here tuberculosis evening rise of temperature.
Yes, sir.
Why there will be evening rise of temperature in tuberculosis?
No, I don't know, sir. So I don't know.
Why at all there is a fever in tuberculous lymphadenitis?
So it's because of the active inflammation that is caused by the bacteria itself, sir.
You study and next time I will answer you. Okay, you study this. It is a very important question in tuberculous lymphadenitis. Why there is a rise of temperature? Okay.
Okay, sir.
Anything to do with cytokines like that, you study and come back. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sir.
You go ahead.
Post in the group tomorrow, Madan.
Sure, sir.
Okay. Yeah. Carry on.
Sir, as far as the mode of presentation is seen, usually the non-malignant causes, the infectious disease is the most common cause causing the cervical lymphadenopathy. Most of the people present with the painful swelling of the neck, which is associated with the fever. But as the malignancy is also kept in mind, certain other symptoms and signs must also be kept in mind, such as difficulty in breathing, difficulty in swallowing, and the complaint of swelling of face and neck due to the venous and lymphatic obstruction. Children can present with snore at night, or else in thyroid disease there can be a change in voice, and recurrent chest infection can also be the mode of presentation. In general examination, apart from routine checkup, describing the characteristic of lymph node is also necessary, which I'll be describing in the upcoming slide. And one should also look for the signs and symptoms such as malnutrition, cachexia, anemia, and loss of weight. In systemic examination, apart from the CVS and the RS examination, keeping the malignancy in mind and other suppurative inflammatory disease in the aerodigestive tract, one should also look for the oral examination, ENT examination, thyroid disease, and per abdominal examination to look for any swelling. Next comes the local examination. It goes in a systemic fashion, starting from the head and working down the neck. Most part of the cervical lymph nodes are examined by the examiner standing behind the patient, and the posterior group of the lymph nodes can be palpated by standing in front of the patient. It is palpated by the palmar aspect of the hand in a circular fashion. In the upcoming images, in the left top hand, we can see the examination of examination of the submental group of lymph nodes, submandibular, preauricular, and postauricular group of the lymph nodes, in which the examiner is standing behind the patient and examining. And the occipital lymph nodes, supraclavicular and posterior cervical lymph nodes is in this image. It is shown that the examiner is standing behind, but it can be examined from the front side by standing in the front of the patient. As far as the characteristic of the node is concerned, the consistency, the tenderness, the mobility, the number of lymph node is enlarged, the demarcation, size, the duration and rate of growth must be mentioned, and the symmetry must also be looked upon. As far as the consistency is considered, most of the metastatic cancer is hard in consistency. Lymphoma are usually firm rubbery in consistency. If there is an infection or if there is a separated node, it can be soft or fluctuant. Matting of lymph nodes is commonly seen in chronic inflammatory disease such as tuberculosis and in malignant metastatic carcinoma as well as lymphoma. So with this, any questions?
Can I come in?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you just tell me in inspection and in palpation, step by step. In inspection, what all you want to do. In palpation, what all you want to do. I don't want this theoretical thing. In inspection, patient is sitting on a stool. You are just go on inspecting the swelling. What all you want to see.
Sir, on inspectory finding, the inflammatory changes such as the redness, the swelling.
Don't use theoretical words. You please tell me in inspection, you are wearing the gloves, patient is sitting on a stool, you will see, think that there is 120-year-old girl coming with a neck swelling. Okay, she is sitting on a stool. What exactly you will see in the inspection first? Number one, inspection. What you will see?
The skin over the swelling, sir.
What you will see in the skin?
Sir, in case of TB, it can cause a cholestered abscess.
Don't take this is the name. What all you will see, you tell me. 1, 2, 3, 4 like that. Skin, what you will see?
I will look for any ulcers or sinus tract.
Sinus, okay. Any scar you will see?
Yes, sir.
Skin changes you will see? Redness.
Yes, sir.
Okay, skin changes you will see. Then what are the boundaries you will see? Where exactly it is situated? In the upper part of the neck, or in the lower part of the neck, or in the middle part of the neck? That site also you will see in the inspection. What else you will see? What else you will see on the inspection? Is it any engorged veins are there on the swelling? Is it pulsatile? You will see all these things.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so inspection. Next is palpation. In palpation, what you will see? Would you like to take the consent of the patient for examination?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that you have to mention. Okay, palpation, what you will see?
Sir, I will check for the characteristic of the node, sir.
First, what you will do? As soon as you do palpation, what you will do?
Sir, I will check for the plane of the
local
swelling.
Rise of temperature.
No, local rise of temperature. These are all basics.
Inflammatory change.
Tenderness.
Basic local rise of temperature. Whether it is tender or not, that you have to see.
Fine, sir.
Okay, next.
Inflammatory changes. Sorry, sir.
Don't use theoretical words now. We will talk about that afterwards. First, you will see local tenderness or local rise of temperature.
Then comes the characteristic of the nodes.
Madan.
Yes, sir.
What Dr. Nooli is telling you is extremely important. People have failed FRCS exams because if you are not careful, first you have to consent the patient. Second, you have to look for local rise of temperature and tenderness. If it is tender, you have to be extremely careful. If you are rough with the patient and patient winces in front of the examiner, then you are failed. So it is very important. So first things are done to actually make sure that if the patient is tender, you have to be very, very careful when you palpate this neck node. So all these things are very important. Yeah.
After tenderness, what you will do? What you will see for? You will go for consistency.
Yes, sir.
What are the types of consistency you know of?
Sir, hard, soft, and firm, sir.
You how to remember? Lip, tip of the nose, and forehead. Soft is lips, okay? Firm is tip of the nose. Hard is your forehead. This is how you should remember the consistency. So in this swelling, you should see for the consistency. Only these three are there, okay? Soft, firm, or hard. Sometimes there will be variegated consistency. That we'll discuss afterwards. After consistency, next what?
Sir, tenderness, sir.
Tenderness, finish it now.
Mobility, next. Sir.
Mobility, good. Mobility. What you will do? Now think that it is in the upper part of the neck. What mobility? Why you want to see the mobility? For clinical significance of mobility?
Sir, the matting of lymph nodes is
something. To know what you are doing mobility. To know the plane of the swelling. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So what all you will do for that?
Sir.
First, you have to examine whether skin is attached to the swelling or not.
Yes, sir.
Okay. How we will do that? How we will come to know that whether skin is attached to swelling or not? How we will know?
So the patient is asked to turn the neck in the contralateral side against.
Sorry, dear. You have to pinch the skin and see all over the swelling whether it is attached to the swelling or not. Okay. Next mobility is what? How we will test?
Muscular structures, sir.
Muscular structures. Okay. Now you think that it is in the area of sternomastoid. Whether it is deep to sternomastoid or it is superficial to sternomastoid. How we will come to know?
Sir, by asking the patient to turn to the contralateral side against resistance, sir.
Okay.
And now examining
okay. Now, if it becomes prominent, what is your inference?
It's the tumor that the mass that is arising from the sternocleidomastoid, sir.
It is either arising or it is superficial to the sternomastoid, isn't it?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, so if it is attached to sternomastoid or not, how we will come to know?
Sir, moving.
How the
Sir,
fibers of sternomastoid run? Muscular fibers of
vertically, sir.
sternomastoid run? Okay, so
Vertically,
how we
sir.
will test this one? Whether it is
Against-
attached to sternomastoid or not, how we will come to know?
Moving along the direction of the fibers, sir.
Okay, now what is the inference? Now it is not moving. What is your inference? If it is
Then
moving, what
it
is your
is-
inference?
Sir, on contraction, if it is not mobile, it is a mass that is arising from the sternocleidomastoid, sir. If it
Okay.
is still moving against the direction of the fibers, it is considered as the mass is not arising or it is superficial to the sternocleidomastoid, sir.
Okay, now the sternocleidomastoid you have put into contraction, the swelling is not prominent. What is the inference?
So it is the plane of the swelling is superficial to the sternocleidomastoid, sir.
No. Sternomastoid muscle you have put into contraction, the swelling is not much prominent now. What is your inference?
It is arising from the deeper structure, sir.
Yeah.
It is deep to the sternocleidomastoid.
Yes, sir.
That's all. Okay. Now lymph node mass, when you are examining, most of the commonly, my question is commonly whether lymph node masses are superficial to sternomastoid muscle or deep to the sternomastoid muscle.
Deep to sternocleidomastoid, sir.
Yes, that is the thing. So you are in the palpation. Now you are coming to the first you told local rise of temperature. Then you told the tenderness. Then you told about the mobility, fixity to the skin. Next what?
Sir, the number of lymph nodes, sir?
No, we have not told anything about lymph nodes now. We are examining a swelling now. We are examining a swelling. We don't know whether it is a lymph node mass or branchial cyst, lipoma, sebaceous cyst, nothing we don't know. We are examining
Yes,
a
sir.
swelling in the neck now. Okay. We are stepwise
So the
we are
time-
defining now. Okay. Now mobility you are examining. Next what?
So the surface and
Fluctuation you want to know? Anything fluctuation you know?
yes, sir.
Okay. What is fluctuation? How we will do?
Sir, the swelling must kept non-mobile and the pressure is applied from one side and the other side, if the swelling moves, it's fluctuates. Sir.
Give examples of fluctuant swellings in the neck.
So if there is a Zenker's diverticulum, we can see a fluctuating muscle.
Common swellings you please tell.
Ask Dr. Shivaram if he has seen one.
Cold abscess, Madan.
Yes, sir.
What is cold abscess by the by, Madan?
Yes, sir.
What is cold abscess?
So it is seen in tuberculosis condition in which
Okay.
the inflammatory changes are not present, sir.
That's why it is called cold.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, now tell me the stages of cold abscess quickly.
Sir, first there is a inflammation of the lymph node alone,
Okay.
which involves
Next.
the capsule, which is called as
Okay.
periadenitis.
Yes.
And there is a clumping of lymph nodes together.
Matting.
Of lymph nodes together.
Hmm.
And there is a granulomatous change leading to abscess formation, sir.
It is what material it will be? Caseous material.
Caseous, milk-like material, sir.
Okay, milk protein. That is cold abscess. What is collar stud abscess?
Is it cholesterol?
Same, sir. If there is a sinus tract in the, sir, I don't know, sir.
Okay, you study. Okay, we'll go ahead now. So we came here now to where mobility we were talking, fluctuation we talked. Next what? Next step in palpation.
So the margins of the swelling, sir. Edges of the swelling, sir.
Edges of the swelling. Okay, what you will see in the edges?
Sir, whether it is well defined or ill defined, sir.
Well defined is what and ill defined is what? Give me example. In this condition, they are well defined. In this condition, they are ill defined. Give example, clinical exam, a clinical point. Some example.
Sir, the structures that is arising from the deeper part of the neck.
Clinical, any disease you tell me, neck swelling, wherein the edges are well defined.
Say, otherwise
and
you don't know,
ill-defined.
say, actually.
Sir, I don't know, sir.
Yeah, you are prepared for a theoretical presentation. correct now?
Yes, sir.
Then it's okay, sir. I won't ask. Thank you. If it's theoretical, this one we will go ahead then, sir.
I think
Thank
that's
you.
what, sir. He has prepared for a theoretical presentation.
Okay.
I
Okay,
think
sir.
clinical orientation is a first year PG, actually. First,
Okay.
just a second month it is, actually. Yeah.
I thought a clinical background, clinical basis is
He's
very
more
important, no,
prepared for
sir?
a theoretical presentation.
Yeah, then it's okay. Then we'll listen to him. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sorry, sir. Sorry, I'm disturbing him.
Sir,
No, sir. This is
No
very
problem, sir. No
relevant.
problem, sir. Just telling because he's not answering properly and he's finding it difficult, actually.
Why I was asking is, sir, even if he's first year, unless this good fundamental things are
Yes, sir.
very
Yes,
much
sir.
prepared,
Yeah. Just the first
otherwise
month
we
he
can't.
is.
Yeah, we will first discuss. I mean, we will take another class for him on clinical
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You
examination,
should,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then we,
Yes,
because
sir.
theory will not be clear, sir, unless we talk on
Correct, sir. Definitely, sir. Yes,
clinical methods. Usually we are failing in because these people are not examining the patients, sir, of late.
Correct, sir. Correct. Yes, sir.
So I'm worried about the clinical examination. That's why I started asking. Anyway, sir,
Correct,
he
sir.
can
No
go
problem,
ahead.
sir.
Thank you,
Yes.
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Sir, as far as the investigation is concerned, whatever the investigation that I have mentioned here is not necessarily that should be done in all the patient. Most of the etiology of cervical lymphadenopathy is diagnosed on the clinical examination itself, along with the supportive blood investigation with raised ESR level. Apart from that, certain other investigations such as chest X-ray can be done, ultrasound of neck and abdomen, sputum AFB, FNAC or excision biopsy can be done. CT scan of chest, neck, abdomen, pelvis can be done to look for malignancy. Laryngoscopy, bronchoscopy, and upper GI scopy plays to find out the hidden primary lesions. Sir, investigation so far only this I have mentioned, sir. Any questions, sir?
If you have a choice between doing an FNAC and in a lymph node biopsy, which will you choose?
Sir, I choose excisional biopsy, sir, over FNSC.
Why?
So in FNSC, the sample size that I am collecting is very less, sir. So in case if I have to send to the different departments for microbiology or pathology, the sample size is not enough. So and it is not the treatment also, sir. So I choose excisional biopsy over FNSC.
Not treatment. See, first of all, tuberculosis also may be difficult to prove with FNAC alone. If nowadays the newer tests may be able to diagnose it, but still they will usually not be able to. I think the false negative and false positive rates are up to 20 to 30%. So it's quite high. So that is one. Second thing is, if it is lymphoma, you want the tissue for immunohistochemistry and also to whether it is B cell, T cell, all these things. So you need a proper full lymph node for you to give a proper diagnosis. So I think it is always better to go for a excision biopsy rather than FNAC. You can start with an FNAC, but ultimately, if at all, even if it is lymphoma cells are there, abnormal cells or lymphatic cells are there, you still have to do a proper biopsy to get histopathology and immunohistochemistry.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Girish, what's your opinion on that?
Perfect, sir. Whatever you sir has mentioned is right, sir. Always we should aim at doing an excision biopsy or an FNAC. Incomplete information or whatever is solved by excision, the whole node is given, regardless whether it is an inflammatory or a non-inflammatory cause. All sorts of diseases could be given a final result based on this excision biopsy. It clears all our doubts. Probably it will help better in our management. For example, in lymphoma, all zones of the lymph nodes are required to categorize which type of lymphoma on histopathology, unless we are going ahead with IHC, which is the usual. So that clears our doubts with respect to lymphomas. Many other metastatic disease, which may be either adeno or squamous or poorly differentiated malignancies, can also be clearly picked up on this excision biopsy. Not all areas of the lymph nodes may harbor disease. So FNAC by itself, while doing some areas which do not harbor cell rests, may actually give false negative rate. So picking up the whole node will give the complete area wherever the disease nests are there can be picked up. So it's always better to do a excision biopsy as I was mentioned.
Dr. Mahesh is asking any role for ultrasound guided FNAC?
Probably we might benefit for some patients, but ultimately, we someday or the other, for a proper diagnosis, we'll end up in doing an excision biopsy.
Shivaram sir, one more, this one, good, the pickup rate for for FNAC may be high if there are extremely dedicated good cytopathologists, and they are rare to find. So that is another, difficulty. And this one, Madan, one more thing is, when you do lymph node biopsy, you actually dissect the body from the lymph node rather than the lymph node from the body, because you want to maintain the architecture of the lymph node, because that is extremely important for them to interpret it.
All right. Okay, we'll move ahead.
Move on.
Okay, Madan.
Sir, as far as the management is concerned, it depends on treating the underlying cause, sir. So I'll finally end my seminar by commenting upon CUPS, sir. It is the carcinoma of unknown primary origin. It is a heterogeneous group of cancer which is defined by the presence of metastatic disease with no identifiable primary tumor. In other words, the criteria for carcinoma of unknown primary origin is if there is a biopsy proven malignancy for which the anatomic origin is unknown, even after taking a proper medical history, doing the physical examination and routine blood investigation and chest x-ray, even after doing the upper GI endoscopy, bronchoscopy, CECT thorax, abdomen, pelvis, and PET CT, and finally doing the IHC marker, even after all doing all this investigation, if we not found out any primary source, it is considered as CUPS. With this, I conclude.
No. It doesn't mean that doing all these things you are not found. It doesn't mean that. It means that first, whatever you have mentioned, first two lines, that you could not find out a proper primary, you will do all these things. It doesn't mean that even after doing all these things, you will not find one.
Okay, sir.
You usually end up in finding one.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, can I come in?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, lymph node biopsy, Dr. Madan.
Yes, sir.
Lymph node biopsy, when you do, either it will be coming squamous cell carcinoma or adenocarcinoma. If it comes as squamous cell carcinoma, where all organs you would like to do, go ahead with investigation. If it is adenocarcinoma, then where all we should go ahead. If you don't know, you please tell me. Don't know. Because lymph node, what they will do, the pathologist will give you. You have mentioned it as secondary in the neck. Then what he will give, either it is squamous cell carcinoma or it will be adenocarcinoma. Okay. So we have to search for the primary now, depending on his report. So if it is squamous cell carcinoma, where all we should look after, where we should go ahead, and if it is adenocarcinoma, where we should. It's a homework for you. Okay.
Sure, sir. I'll look upon it, sir. So with this, I conclude my seminar, sir. Thank you.
At least some you can tell, Madan. You told so many drainage areas, no?
So structures that is originating, sir, such as carcinoma tongue.
Yeah, carry on.
Carcinoma tongue, nasopharyngeal carcinoma, as well as laryngeal carcinoma. All these gives rise to squamous metastasis, sir.
You know anything about Waldeyer ring? Waldeyer ring?
Yes, sir. It has inner circle and outer circle, sir.
Okay. What are the components? You know?
So inner circle is formed by the lingual tonsil, palatine tonsil, adenoids, and
lymphatic tissues.
Lymphatic, yes, sir.
Yeah. Then outer.
Outer is formed by submandibular groups, submental, and the parotid group and facial group of nodes.
See how this is how your answer should be. Okay, it's very good answer. You answered very well.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What is the lining of? Sorry, sir. Sorry, continue, sir. Sorry.
You can
so, hello.
Yes, sir.
So squamous cell carcinoma, adenocarcinoma, I was asking. Shivaram sir is asking you, which are the organs you look after in these two things, squamous cell carcinoma and adenocarcinoma?
Anybody else can answer?
Sir, any glandular structure malignancy can produce adenocarcinoma.
Now, CA stomach with a secondary in the left clavicular subclavicular group, varicose nodes you were talking. Okay.
Okay, sir.
What type of lymph node biopsy it will be? Adenocarcinoma or squamous cell carcinoma?
Adenocarcinoma, sir.
Like that we have to think. Now, so one was putting in the chat box about scrotum. Scrotum, why you want to examine in the neck swelling?
So the testes, I mean, as far as the testes drainage is considered, it goes to the abdomen as well as it drains in the left neck.
Which testicular tumors
Left side,
produce neck swellings?
Which test is seminomatous tumor, sir?
So what I'm telling, so you are most junior, but whenever neck swelling, no, you have to prepare all these things. Just go on asking yourself questions. You should go on asking yourself questions. If the lymph nodes report comes like this, what next, what next, what next, like that.
Sure,
okay?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Dr. Madan.
Yes, sir.
Educated him very well. Dr. Girish?
So, Dr. Madan, tell me one thing. What is the mucosal lining of oral cavity, lung, or till what part of the aerodigestive tract would be the lining? Which type of epithelium is it mentioned over there?
Sir,
I mean to say buccal mucosa, tongue, nasopharynx.
non-epithelialized
all these areas. What
ciliated
type of
columnar.
epithelium is this?
Non-keratinized ciliated columnar epithelium, sir. Most of the part.
Ciliated would be in the I would say
Indus.
beyond secondary bronchi, okay, and in some part of the nasal cavity. Otherwise, it is stratified squamous epithelium.
Stratified squamous cell carcinoma.
Okay, so all these areas can have a primary, can have this as metastasis as squamous cell malignancies in a squamous cell lymph nodes. Similarly, as sir mentioned, any epithelium which is lined by glandular epithelium will definitely lead to adenocarcinomas, as in case of some parts of the lung, in any infraclavicular structures in the abdomen or in the testes will lead to adenocarcinoma looking like, even for that matter, breast is the common one with the duct carcinoma, infiltrated duct carcinoma. All these would be presenting as, or the histopathologist would be seeing adenocarcinoma cells over there. So the lining, the area of the malignancy which leads to the neck nodes will decide which epithelium will be seen in there, whatever either squamous cells or adenocarcinoma cells will be seen there.
Okay, sir.
Dr. Ravi Shankar, final comments.
I think Madan, this is your first one. So always collateral reading and expecting questions beyond the scope of what you are talking. I think that is very important. I think it will come to you as you present more and more, because you will understand what kind of questions examiners ask. So it is important for you to be prepared for that. And I think you have now entered surgery. So Dr. Nooli's questions were all very relevant and very pertinent. So you should be able to properly examine a swelling. I think that is an undergraduate subject. So you should be very good at that now. So I think you should have prepared for that. But your presentation as far as the neck levels and other things were very good. You have understood the concept well. So that is good.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to comment? Dr. Nooli, sir, thank you so much for joining.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. My comments are this, sir. Thing is, sir, in our country, clinical diagnosis will definitely help the patient financially. A simple lymph node biopsy will give us the diagnosis and further management. To have the diagnosis, we should have a proper clinical examination. That is my intention, sir. That's all. Otherwise, patient will end up with so many investigations, and it will be a financial burden for the patient. So clinical examination, if we do up to date, we will clinch the diagnosis and further management will be very easy, and financial burden will not be there for the patient. That is my concluding part, sir.
Very true, very true.
Very true.
Such a very important structure. There are so many important structures. So you have to be very thorough with neck, lymph node, dissection, everything. Dr. Mahesh?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, the presentation was good. Yes, we have a collateral preparation also in future to expect such questions, and clinical examination, we should train them more, actually.
Right. Thank you, everybody. Girish,
Thank you, sir.
comments?
Nothing, sir.
Yeah,
Only
good. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.